You're watching the Flourishing Introvert show. If you're an introvert with more to offer and are looking for ways to play to your strengths authentically, you're in the right place. With up to 50% of any population identifying as an introvert, if you're not one, you'll know one, but you may not understand what makes them tick. Watching this show will help you to build that understanding and consequently build better business and personal relationships. Many people don't find out until their mid-years that what makes them different is their introversion. So this show is also for you if you're curious about becoming the best version of yourself. Let's get started. Hello, welcome, and do join me as I spend the next maybe 20 minutes or so exploring something that is probably the best bit about shedding, and that's the process of actually letting go. For those of you who've not met me before, I'm Joanna. I'm the founder of Flourishing Introverts, and I imagine a world where people own their introversion with confidence, with pride, and with a lived experience of equity. And we're a very long way from that right now. And I say very because I've encountered quite a disturbing post on LinkedIn today, which I needed to respond to, about how if somebody calls you an introvert, they're not your friend. I won't go into details, but suffice to say, I was a little bit shook. So we're a long way from us experiencing our introversion as something that we can own confidently. And I work with introverts who want to reach more of their potential, and I rattle the cages of organisations and educational establishments to highlight and shake out the bias that is hiding in plain sight and touted around on things like LinkedIn. Anyway, I've noticed that for many introverts, including me, our preference for looking inward extends to the way that we sometimes approach letting go. Even though the decision has been made and we know what we want to let go of. This seems to apply whether it's material possessions or non-tangibles like beliefs, expectations, and the like. While the process of letting go may appear subtle and even effortless in some cases, make no mistake, it's a deliberate and intentional journey that reveals the unique character and strength of introverts, in my opinion. So today I'll be sharing some of the processes for actually letting go, especially of the things that are harder to shed. This may include things that we have an emotional attachment to, things that we've spent good money on, so they were a considered purchase at the time, or things that we're familiar with and that have served us well in the past and maybe feel like old friends. As I explored last week, there are various ways to go about the decision-making of what to let go, and we as introverts are known for our thoughtful, contemplative nature and on occasions our overthinking. So when we decide it's time to let go of something, whether it's a physical possession or an emotional attachment, we rarely rush into it. We take the time to reflect on our decision, to be doubly sure it's the right thing to do, that we have the strength of will to carry through the required action. And of course, the actions that we need to take are many and varied. Putting a physical item in the charity bag or donating it to Goodwill, things that we have no emotional attachment to and that we've decided is no longer serving us, is very different to letting go of a habit, an expectation, or something that has sentimental meaning. Letting go is seldom easy if there is an emotional or if there is emotional processing to be done. And many of us hold our emotions in specific ways. I remember the first time I came across this during a Women into Leadership course that I was doing through the Cranfield School of Management. that course was definitely a pivotal course for me, as it was also the course when I took the Myers-Briggs type indicator and found out that what made me and different was my introversion. Anyway, from the work we did around bioenergetics, how we hold energy, I recognize that my holding patterns are, in order of magnitude, hold in, which comes with an open heart, but a lived assumption of, if I don't keep it in, people will disapprove of me. Maybe that was linked to my the conditional love I received as a child. As is typical with this particular holding pattern, the hold-in pattern, I feel the tension in my shoulders mostly, and often have to consciously think about dropping my shoulders. I also have a degree of hold back, which comes with playfulness and love, but an assumed reality of, if I open my heart, I will be rejected. I feel this in my neck and upper chest as well. Neck, upper body is definitely getting a hammering here. And finally, in terms of holding patterns, I have a side order of hold up, which is thinking that I must be extra special, heroic even, to be loved. I feel this in my neck and shoulders too. It's no wonder that my massage therapists always comment on the tightness and the knots in my neck and upper back, is it? And that reminds me, it really is time that I booked myself another therapeutic massage or get back to yoga to help me get rid of this stuckness. So I don't ignore my feelings anymore, but that's taken time and work, as I've spoken about in previous shows. These days, I really allow myself to feel my emotions, and in this case, the ones associated with the decisions I'm making. But I usually do that in private, whether it's sadness, nostalgia, or even relief. Introverts like me are likely to give ourselves the space to process these emotions fully. And that's a good thing, as emotional processing is a crucial step in our journey to closure and acceptance. It's quite common for we introverts to adopt a mindful approach to the process of letting go. We're unlikely to just toss aside our possessions or relationships casually or without a second glance. I, for one, prefer to give things a proper farewell. Just me? Maybe we'll find out later. When parting with a material possession, something really tangible, I prefer to sell it to someone who will appreciate it, or donate it to a worthy cause, pass it on to a friend or family member. You see, my opinion is there's far too much waste, built-in obsolescence, and acceptance of the disposability of things these days. I was taught to make, do, and mend, and yet I know people who don't even own a needle and thread or a toolbox. The skills my mother taught me at her knee and that my father taught me in his garage serve me well to this day, and many of them are even the source of some of my favorite pastimes, the way I even recharge. In the case of non-material stuff, I find the ceremony of letting go particularly therapeutic. The other week on our business retreat, we wrote things on a piece of paper that we wanted to leave behind. And we then took them to the fire and spoke what was on the piece of paper as we placed them in the fire. I find there's something both very final and very satisfying about watching things like that smolder, catch light, and then disappear in a puff of smoke. There seems to be no return from that somehow, because I really don't think that those things are like phoenixes. They're not going to re-establish. If it's habits I need to let go of, I gain strength from the fact that, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, it's change by choice, not by reaction. as he reminds us, why wait until things are so bad to change? I then use a process, probably the intentional change process, or maybe Charles Duhigg's habit changing process, to let go of old ways of being that no longer serve me. I'm also reassured that as habits are learned and learned ways of behaving, that we can also learn new ways of behaving. I can learn new habits that will also become automatic. This often requires the Lewin approach to change, probably one of the original models of change potentially, which is his approach was to unfreeze, change, and then refreeze. As he said, motivation for change must be generated before change can occur. One must be helped to re-examine many cherished assumptions about oneself and about one's relations to others. What that says to me is having a clear vision of the future, how and who I want to be, enables me to let go of limiting beliefs that are holding me back, assumptions about who I am and how the world is, and the expectations others have of who and how I should be. These things I find are more difficult to let go of than those material possessions that may do someone a turn. This is about having a mindset and philosophy that serves me first and foremost. And no, that's not selfish. That's what has me resourced to be able to then give of myself generously and with love. When changing habits, and to some degree when letting go of things, we need to recognize the void that it can create and deal with it appropriately. With material possessions, there's often no need to fill the void. In fact, having sparsity in life of material excess is something I aspire to now in my golden days. It's funny how we seem to spend our earlier years acquiring stuff, only to realize in later years that we never really needed it. Time to be honest with you now, though. I still have my tsundoku habit, the habit of buying more books than I could ever read, and I'm still working towards a minimalist way of living. But it's something I aspire to, so I will keep working towards it. So there's a need to embrace, appreciate, and cherish the void that we've created when we let go of material things, and I might say a bit more about that later. But when it comes to habits and even our thinking, we need to treat this void a little differently. You see, the subconscious mind really doesn't like a void or emptiness. It's why when it comes to habits, it's best to replace one habit with another, more preferable habit. I mean, have you ever lost weight only to find it all and more again? I know I have. There may well be a void that we create by letting go of others' expectations. And I suggest that this is usefully filled with our boundaries, with their installation, their maintenance, and their defense. But we need to fill these voids mindfully. Don't rush to fill them for the sake of it. Empty spaces usually present opportunities for growth and renewal. Instead of rushing to fill the void with something new, give yourself a little time to acknowledge the absence of whatever you've let go of. Adapt to the change and discover what new possibilities might emerge. It's this mindful approach that ensures that the transition, the letting go transition, is respectful and meaningful. At this point, I'd like to share the ritual I use when letting go. So please feel free to borrow it or use it as an idea to create your own ritual. There are 5 simple steps, so you might want to make a note of the 5, or you can watch back and pick them up again. My first step is that I find a sacred place to carry out this ritual, appropriate for what I'm letting go of. I have what I consider a non-religious altar on my mantelpiece. It's got some crystals and a Buddha and some candles. And I light the candles or burn whatever incense feels appropriate. But you find what works for you. But a sacred space for the ritual of letting go can be very, very helpful. The next thing I do is thank whatever it is I'm letting go of as I let it go, a bit like when we put the pieces of paper in the fire. After all, that thing had, oh dear, that thing had served me in some way, and I'd chosen to hang on to it for however long. And for me, I found that having a good riddance attitude doesn't really have the right energy at that point in the process. The next thing I do is reaffirm how life is without the thing I've let go of in the most positive and realistic terms possible. And I use the present tense as I talk about that because, remember, thoughts become things. The next thing I do is welcome in the new space, if I'm leaving a space, or the new habit or behavior if I'm not leaving a space for some time. And then finally, express gratitude for the learning I've acquired along the way and the new habit or behavior that's now supporting me on the next stage of my journey. So 5 simple steps there that I find incredibly useful for letting go of those non-material things. This ritual allows me to honor endings in an appropriate way, to welcome new beginnings, including the unknown that will inevitably that will inevitably emerge and realign, gives me a chance to realign with my purpose, my passion, and my values. That process for me is both intentional and gentle. So I'm being truly kind to myself, and that makes it exactly the sort of process that I'm interested in. It allows me to shed the unnecessary and uncover a deeper sense of who I am. For me, this letting go or shedding process is a powerful and transformative experience. Understandably, I need to allow for a period of replenishment following a ritual like this. I'm not going to rush straight into something else. I shared a week or 2 back that one of the things I needed to let go of is taking myself too seriously. And it's already working, as even though I was talking about introverted leadership at a hugely important business seminar last week, I was able to laugh at myself during the presentation and had the audience laughing with me. So I know these rituals work. I've also had some clients struggle to identify the non-tangible things that they probably want to or need to let go of. It might be a case of an over-anxious inner critic, wondering if they'll still have a job to do if we let go of too many things, too many non-tangible things. So I've created a checklist for you to ponder, which you can download for free. And you'll see the link on the slide that comes up at the end of the show to that downloadable. So have a pen and paper ready, or make sure that you take a screenshot when we get to that point of the show. In conclusion, the process of letting go for introverts follows, is a deliberate and introspective journey. And of course, it follows our whole process of purposeful decision making. And it's going to involve embracing emotions, taking intentional action, honoring endings, embracing the unknown, and periods of quiet reflection. The intention of this shedding, just like, I suppose, the trees shed their leaves in the autumn, is to feel lighter, more purposeful, ready for the journey ahead, and more joyful once the process is complete. because shedding is merely a necessary step in service of a more fulfilled life. If you know you need to let go of some limiting beliefs that are holding you back, then please take a look at the self-paced course on my website. It's easy to spot and unsurprisingly called Flip Your Limiting Beliefs. But for now, thank you for letting me share my musings with you. And please join me next week when what we'll be talking about will be navigating and embracing the unfamiliar. Until then, you'll find me on all social platforms at Flourishing Introverts. And I've put up on the screen now that link to the nudge list. If you think you may need a nudge to let go of some of the intangibles, it's quiet.flourishingintrovert.com/let-go, and that will give you the nudge list you're looking for. As ever, you'll find me on all social platforms at Flourishing Introverts, and you can always email me with ideas that you'd like me to talk about, or things that have resonated with me that you'd like to share. And my email address there is Joanna@FlourishingIntroverts. So thank you for joining me today. Enjoy your letting go process, because those voids that we experience can be such powerful places for learning and growth. Thanks for joining me.